First I covered the Siege Shockwave instead of doing a What's the Best on Skyflyer, now I'm covering the Masterpiece Dinobot? What even is this week? I guess you could call it the week of figures I should have covered on their own a long time ago. Before I start this one out, happy birthday to RetroXtero, one of my earliest subscribers, and I'm grateful to have him, even when he threatens to unsubscribe to me because I don't choose to say mini masterpiece instead of micro masterpiece. Also, speaking of birthdays, the 1-year anniversary of my channel is next month, and I will be doing a Q&A video for it. If you'd like to submit a question for me to answer on camera, then there will be a link to the thread on the channel's Reddit in the description. Unfortunately, if you have a question for the Q&A, it has to go through the Reddit. If some are on YouTube, and some are on Reddit, and some are on Twitter, I'm going to lose track of someone's question at some point, so I have to keep them confined to the Reddit. Lastly, before I say the next part, let me make it clear, I am super grateful to you guys, and I totally get that you are just trying to help, and it humbles me that you want to. But 3 people in the last month, and 4 overall, have created Discord servers for my channel, and I'm really grateful that you want to help, but I obviously can't have 4 official Discords at once. And this might be something I've forgotten to say in a video for a very long time now, but yes, I do plan on having a channel Discord. But since before 100 subscribers, it's been a milestone goal for me. The plan has always been to open a Discord at 5,000 subscribers. We're getting there. We're getting there faster and faster by the week, so please, just hold on a little longer. And before you know it, we will have a Discord for you guys to hang out in. And believe me, I'm excited for it too. I've often thought about just starting one earlier than the milestone that I planned. But please, let me be the one to worry about this. I don't want to stifle you guys. I love how much you guys do for me. But the Discord is something I want to make on my own time. Though I suppose I'll ask, should I just give in and make one now, or should I stick to my guns and go for the milestone? But onto the figure, and oh, his ankles suck. I just know that they are going to make this hell to review. Just sitting here on my desk while I tried to write that whole preamble, he tried to fall over like 20 times because of how weak the tension on his feet are. But that's beside the point, because the look of this guy is awesome. I was kind of worried when I went to start this that I wouldn't care as much for the look of him, that the sheen of the figure would have worn off by now. I mean, he is kind of weird shaped. His whole body just kind of balloons upwards with these tiny legs as he expands while your gaze travels upwards across him, and you end up on this total thumb of a head. But at the same time, no. When I got this guy down off the shelf for the first time all year, I found myself just smiling to look at him. There really is something about it, something kind of magical. You just kind of want to give a happy smirk and point like, that's pretty good, right? I mean, this is going to be entirely subjective to me, but something about the look of this takes me right back to when I first got it. Back to just shortly after it came out and was scalped to hell and you couldn't find them anymore. Back when my spine wasn't jacked up and I didn't feel like I'd aged a decade over the course of a weekend. When the allure of collecting was new and fresh again because it'd been years since I'd stopped and my transforming skills were rusty, so even simpler figures seemed complex. Really getting to experience the quantum leap that had happened to figures over the preceding decade. Like I said, this is entirely subjective, but the look of this just dredges up these memories in me, and it makes it hard to be harsh. To be fair, that is because this is real damn good. Few figures hit the design they are going for so well. Honestly, I'd say this figure's only real problems lie in percentages. The thighs are probably 20% too short, the torso is probably several percent too big, the neck is probably 30% too wide, the backpack is probably also 30% too big, and hilariously enough, this has the exact opposite problem as the Kingdom figure with the arms probably being like 10% too swole. Like Dinobot is supposed to be jacked like mad, but this is just slightly too ripped. And quite frankly, I get every reason why these percents are off. The legs needed to fit inside the Dino mode, the Dino mode needed to fit inside the backpack, the feet had to fit in the arms, and the raptor head had to stow inside the torso. And well, the neck needed to fit a light-up gimmick that committed suicide. Well, I say needed, more like, dear God, why did they add this stupid thing to the neck when it's easily the ugliest part of the whole robot mode? But I digress. This is a faux former, and normally I would hold that a lot harder against the figure than I do here. The dino head did go where it belongs. Hell, it's even facing the correct direction. But it's just such a horribly incongruous shape to the chest, and to get this drastic change out of it, the head would have had to be made out of a soft rubber with a super complicated mechanism designed to stretch it out to force it into this shape. Instead, they settled for putting the head where it belongs and sticking a faux forming part over it to get it to look right. And I can't say that I blame them for that, or think it's lazy. Even if what I just proposed sounds awesome, and I really want to see the figure that would result from that. What I think is so impressive about the look of this thing is just how outside the slight proportion issues, it manages to be so clean. It's exactly his design from the show. No kibble, nothing out of place, almost no compromises outside of making parts big enough to fit other parts. And the paint here is nothing short of glorious. This is probably the most painted figure Takara has ever produced. And you know I'm not one for paint. Normally. I think here with this figure it was very important. There is a mountain of detail on Dinobot here that just couldn't be done with different color plastics. His surfaces are such complex confluences of colors, there's just no way this could have been done without a substantial paint budget, and this got all it needed in that regard. I can't think of a place where this thing needed paint and didn't get it. The only minor, and I mean minor bummer, is that the thigh paint seems to be a little less robust than the rest. And you'll notice that on mine, both legs have nearly identical paint chips in the exact same spots at the top of his hips. I feel confident in saying that something in the transformation is doing this to them, so be aware of that if you have one of these. The only thing that stands out as actually wrong are these two love handles on the sides of the figure. Everything else is nearly perfect, and so is that head, excluding the neck. Seriously, the neck is a colossal drag on this figure. I would honestly pay like $80 to $100 for a version of the head with no light-up gimmick in it so the neck could be slimmer. They don't even need to give it a face, just make it capable of accepting the existing swappable mugs off the masterpiece and you're golden. Seriously, like $100 for a blank, featureless head with a slimmer neck. That's how much I find this to destroy the head. It cripples the whole thing, undermining everything it has going for it, which is a ton. I mean, the helmet is perfect, and the face is everything you could have hoped for. As a child, I never quite realized how much he looks like a wizened old man, but it's exactly his face. As a child, I also never realized how morally indefensible a lot of his actions were. Like, in my mind, he was just one of the good guys, no question. But looking back on him, a lot of what he did was straight up villainous. Like tricking his allies into blowing up the enemy base while absolutely knowing Cheetor was trapped inside and hiding that fact. But yes, the face is perfection. The only problem with it being, once again, that the neck rears its ugly head. Well, the head on the figure is fine, the neck's with the... Look, you know what I mean. Because of how fat his damn head is, opening his mouth more than a little gives him a double chin, and it completely destroys any hint that he has a jawline. This would be such an awesome feature, and it would work so well if it weren't for this one problem with the neck. I mean, it's incredible how designed the mouth always looks when in every state of open and closed. And you throw his stupid thumb throat into the mix, and it just robs this feature of how awesome it could be. All to get a light-up gimmick that doesn't work because it breaks on its own. I don't know about other people's, but on mine, the plastic around the battery port is just thick enough that you have to force in the batteries. And that causes the metal connectors to flex over time, getting them out of contact with the battery and breaking the connection. I can flex them back into place, but it works its way back out over the course of like a day. The head is so close to being amazing, and it's just sabotaged by the neck. Seriously, $100 right now, skinny neck, that's all it takes. Give it to me. Hasbro, or third party, or whoever. It wouldn't be so frustrating if it weren't so close to perfection. Man, I found a lot of motivation to complain about a figure's neck. This figure comes with a whole mess of a lot. He's got his sword and his tail shield, obviously, and I've complained enough about the sword being pink, but if it were a plain chrome, this would basically be perfect. The shield, on the other hand, needed several tweaks. It doesn't look accurate enough, and that sacrifice was made for the Dino mode, so that's understandable. But the connection to his hand is pathetic, and the ability to spin is controlled by this useless little lever that is more likely to knock the whole thing out of his hand rather than work. He's got a whole heap of faces, eye lasers, a golden disc, a stand for the golden disc, an adapter for the golden disc, a big old stand, and an adapter for the stand. Well, two. So yeah, he comes with a lot, and it's all very high quality, even if some of it works out better than others. Posability on this thing is fantastic. Probably has the most range of any figure I've ever covered on the head. Arms go all the way up, no cheating required, no butterfly. Elbows bend more than a 90, though not as much as you might expect given their design. He's got awesome, nearly fully articulated hands with sword wrists. These are always vital for a sword wielder. And have the rotation after the hinge, so you have even more freedom in posing them. But I will say that these hands are definitely missing splay in the fingers. Dinobot's hands were incredibly animated in the show, and having his fingers locked next to each other is something that limits the spirit of the character. He has a decent ab crunch, but you have to pull down the whole hip section to unlock it. Legs go forward and back with no problems, but out to the side basically not at all. You can trick this though, so at least it's a problem that you can work around. Knees have near maximum bendage, and the feet have basically all the articulation you could want, with rotation, tilt, respectable toe down and up, and even some heel articulation. But they are so incredibly loose they make it hard for him to stand nonetheless, which is a tragedy because if these were tight enough, they'd have made him a joy to pose. Instead, they make it a nightmare to keep him standing. Speaking of nightmares, transformation. Okay, this isn't actually that bad. This is really complicated and a bit fiddly, but it's nowhere near the nightmares that Hasbro sometimes likes to produce. What they've done here is all very clever and even a bit fun, but I will confess that I do try to avoid doing this part, and I'm not looking forward to filming this. The resulting Raptor mode is kind of insanely good. It's incredible just how much they knock this out of the park. It's maybe a bit flat, and the claws are the wrong color for basically no reason, but in the looks department, this is near perfect. With so little kibble and so few gaps, it's clear why the proportions of the robot mode were sacrificed a tiny amount. I'm not sure if I would have preferred that they make the robot mode more proportionally accurate at the expense of this mode, but I would like to know how bad this mode could have looked if they did. This is almost more accurate to the show than his robot form. Not to say that it doesn't have kibble or gaps, they are just a lot less of a problem than you'd expect. It's got swappable eyes and an opening mouth. As for posability, this is far from a brick, but it's definitely very limited. Head looks up and down, and he's got rotation at the neck. But I can't help but to wish for more on this. It feels a little restricted. Arms got all kinds of movement. Tail's got some swish, but it's limited by how little it moves at the base, and his legs are not useless, but they are of very limited use. Really, they pretty much only work from the knee down, meaning that you can get some decent poses, but not a ton, and it's hard to get him properly balanced. But you know what? It is doable, and it does look good almost no matter what. This figure is nearly as perfect as it could get. Most of the sacrifices that were made were necessary, and they're not even that bad. There are only two things I would absolutely no doubt change about this figure, and that's, number one, you saw this coming, the neck. I think they could easily fit a smaller LED in there and have it work, but if not, I don't care. I'd gladly lose the light up function for a better neck in a heartbeat. And number two, I'd add some butterfly joints to the shoulders. Those are both easily doable in my estimations. And if I could change one more thing that doesn't seem like it would actually be easy to get working in this fantasy scenario, I'd get the Dino Mode hips working. And when that's all I can say I'd really consider changing, you know the figure is a home run. People really like to crap on Takara for not producing good masterpieces anymore, but Dinobot here proves that their glory days are not far behind them, and there's a reason that Masterpiece used to be considered the best you could get. Takara, it's not too late to change course. I know you are capable of making amazing stuff again. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.